Yes, we are! Okay. Unboxing Daria, the live edition. It's new. It's a podcast that doesn't exist. We're doing it anyway because we're going stir crazy. Yay!
La 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 la.
That was beautiful. I did actually send you the ukulele tabs to the Daria theme song last night, just in case.
Yes, I saw that. It appears to be beyond my Trent level of musical ability. I actually think that Trent might be more musically talented than I am.
I mean,
so
just because Trent can't write songs or name a band, doesn't mean that he's not musically talented at all. I thought that maybe if I learned just that little la 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 bit, then that would be enough of a sting to be a proper podcast intro that we own the rights to, sort of.
So Michelle, tell us what we have gathered here today.
Yes. In this time of coronavirus, the utterly original phrase that no one has been saying but me. We decided that it was worth revisiting the glorious episode of Daria, which is simply technically entitled Daria! But which we colloquially refer to as Daria the Musical. It is an episode of the show that is an entirely musical episode that has full songs and choreography. You can access it on Hulu. If you would like to watch that, spoiler alert, we will tell you everything that happens in this episode. If you do not wish to be spoiled for an episode of Daria that aired over 15 years ago, or if you just want to refresh yourself, go watch it and then come back. That's what podcast is listening to. Yes, in this episode, a hurricane comes to the ambiguously located town of Lawndale.
I am so glad you brought up Lawndale's location because that was my initial question. Like, what the fuck, man? Where is Lawndale? And how are they at risk of a hurricane?
It's a good question because I feel like the way that Lawndale is coded usually implies that Lawndale is some sort of a Midwestern suburb, but maybe that's just my prejudice from growing up in the Midwest.
I don't know.
Yes.
The long and short of it is that Lawndale is facing a perhaps unprecedented crisis, much like us. And we are here to share the parallels between fiction and the one that we find ourselves in today.
Yes, we have identified all of the top ways, or the top moments in which Daria the Musical speaks to us in our time, right now. And so I have a lovely collection of screenshots, and we have our combined notes to run through in sequential order. So we will not necessarily be going beat by beat, but we will be going, sequentially. Very important.
Right. Can I just say that it definitely makes sense when you've never done something before to do it live for the first time?
I think it does, and you know why? It's because I don't want to edit this. And if it's a live stream, then I'm gonna have no temptation to go in among it and no expectation, because everybody knows when you're doing it live, Let's just do it live.
The magic of the moment, man. All right. So let us begin.
Yes.
Take it away.
Yes. Well, you're the one who commented on 6-7 World.
So this episode opens up with one of my favorite moments of Six Sad World, the inappropriate alto. Who's singing her way through life. And all I have to say is that while it is still A sick, sad world. Arguably sicker and sadder than ever before.
So sick and so sad. So after this like little kind of unexplained sick, sad world vignette, which I think is meant to, because in the episode Murder She Snored, in the episode of Murder She Snored, like Daria falls asleep during an episode of like Charlie's Angels essentially, and so we see like why she has this dream about like being in a murder mystery kind of situation, but like this episode is completely unexplained. And yet, for some reason, we still have this sick, sad world vignette at the beginning, where it's just like sick, sad world, the inappropriate alto, and then just suddenly it's a musical.
Yeah, man.
And I'm very thrilled to talk about the opening song of this, since I think that we have probably referenced the song to each other over the course of the past several years, just innumerable times. But
yeah.
But I realize that no one knows who we are.
Oh, we're gonna go back to that point?
I suppose.
Let's
Just
do it. Just for you, Michelle.
I'm Michelle Funk. I'm Joy's friend. I have a sociology degree. I'm a computer programmer. I did public policy stuff too, and so I have a really distinct lens on Daria, which I started watching and have been watching repeatedly since it was airing. So I know this shit, and I know Joy was Joy and I have been talking about Daria for many years.
Right, and you are the reason that I watched Daria, because you sent it to me in the mail, and I missed it completely during high school. So this is all. Oh God, am I not supposed to admit that?
Well, it was obviously DVDs, you know.
Oh yeah. It was definitely DVDs. Absolutely, 100%. You're like Daria. Be like, I'm Joy. You're Michelle.
Okay, fine.
We're really good at this, guys. Just really good.
Yeah.
So I described this opening number as all of us before the pandemic.
So true.
And it starts with the immortal chorus morning in the birds.
Yes.
So you get Jake and Helen, Daria's parents, singing through an open window. And for me, the first parallel between this song and the life I am living today is when Helen sings to Jake, "Put on your pants. We're singing more than should be seen." And you know, if that is not a whole stay-at-home mood, I don't know what it is.
I identified the same thing. It takes on a whole new meaning. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this entire number, I was joking because I think that originally I thought for this podcast the structure might be like, top 5 moments of Daria that speak to our times, and I was like, I'm pretty sure if we limit ourselves to 5, mine would all be in this first song.
What else did you pick out?
Okay, so we have an audio clip, which no one wants people to hear, but I'll start talking after it's over, which is Daria's entrance. Daria comes into the scene in this musical number after her parents and Quinn have had their pieces with this charmer.
Oh me, oh my, a lovely day is dawning. Oh, what a joy, I didn't wake up dead.
Oh, what a joy, I didn't wake up dead. Oh, it hurts so much. And, like, again, this is one of those things that I've quoted to just countless times, you know.
So I wrote this down, and when I wrote in my notes was, it feels really relevant, but it's almost too cynical for this moment. Like, I'm actually happy that I didn't wake up dead.
That's true. It could all depend on how Yeah, it's true that Daria's sarcasm is, and, we talk a lot about the millennial will to die as a meme about our generation, and, we clearly, Gen Xers claim Daria because Gen Xers created Daria, but the consumers of Daria, many of us were millennials, and I feel like
we are old and venerable millennials.
That is true. We're the elder millennials, the millennial elders. But I feel like
and that's what we're doing here today. We are here to disseminate our wisdom to the millennials younger than us.
They
won't pay any attention, but they should.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, this we have Daria's beautiful entrance, and we have it introduced to us that the news has reported that there's going to be a hurricane happening, and I have my only other audio clip, which is the response of Quinn to this, which is also sadly all too topical.
Such a lovely day. What does science know? What?
So the context of that is that we have James, goodness gracious, we got Helen Morgendorfer introducing, watching on the news that there's a hurricane coming, and but she's like, oh, but it's such a lovely day outside. She's looking out the window, and Quinn, of course, goes, what does science know? Which introduces quite the theme in this episode.
We're living out daily. What does science know, Michelle?
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
Should we listen to science to make our daily decisions, or maybe just not? But we transition then to the scene where we have the leadership of the school telling everyone at the school that everyone needs to leave because they're not allowed to die on school property.
Okay, something very important happens before the leadership of the school takes the reins. And that is that we're at a pep rally for the Lawndale Lions. And Kevin Thompson gets up, he interrupts Mac and says that we are the champions. I'm the QB. And I have to say that in this context, Kevin's just giving me Donald Trump vibes. Honestly, he is. I feel like we are watching a coronavirus era. News broadcast from the White House. But there's no Mac at the White House to try to steer us back to safety. There is no Mac at all. And there's no Ms. Lee, the principal either. So we're just stuck with someone with a mighty helmet of a head.
I mean, it's not clear to me that no one is Ms. Lee, the principal who is so obsessed with the prestige of her school over the actual concerns or safety of anyone there. She's worried about what repairs for the hurricane are going to do to her lie detector and security state budget.
Ms. Lee is heavily influenced by the 9/11 era.
Oh gosh, it's true.
Anyway, we're talking about the context of today, and I think that maybe the most prescient moment is when Ms. Lee tells everyone that they have to go home, and that the big football game is going to be canceled. And this is where we get what might be my favorite song, which just goes, cancelled! No! And look, I've been living my life as canceled. No!
It's true. It could be a very effective GIF now.
It's the cry of our times.
Indeed. I appreciated in your notes your shout out here to Mr. DiMartino.
Yes.
All too brief appearance in this episode.
We will make that happen. Okay. So DiMartino is my fave anyway. If I had to be in a bunker during a hurricane, I would definitely go to Mr. DiMartino's bunker because he would be prepared. And Mr. DiMartino comes out and tells everyone to get the fuck out, to go home. And he's definitely the hero we need right now. I mean, he's kind of J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, who's kind of Mr. DiMartino approach to the whole situation. But more than anything, his eye that just keeps bugging out is definitely me every time I'm watching the news.
Oh my gosh. Yes, or just hearing stories about people who are still, like, hanging out in parks together or refuse to not just, like, chill in grocery stores.
Well, part of this song is Kevin who hits us all with the fake news. He tells us, I mean, big game, big storm, coincidence. And then we have the football team that is apparently auditioning for their new role as Fox News broadcasters, or as like InfoWars memesters. I'm just singing chorus. We're not falling for their line.
Yes. I wrote down the entire quote of this part where he says, X-Files says this is just a sneaky way the authorities create like a natural disaster thing to cover up the real reason the game is canceled. Yeah. It's so real. It almost hurt.
And that's why
it's hilarious. Oh, goodness gracious. So we cut to Jane and Daria, who are hanging out on the roof, fantasizing about the destruction of Lawndale.
Yes. Like I love this because I too cut school pep rally. But I didn't have a roof to go to, and apparently that has been better for my safety. But Daria and Jane are on the roof, and I have to give a shout out to Daria reading an old school newspaper.
It is a source of authority in this episode.
Right. And her reliance on the liberal news media is to her great benefit. But I wrote down a quote here where Oh God, I don't remember if it. I think it's Daria who says, "I want to live to see what this place looks like after it's been obliterated." And you know that has been me, especially in the early weeks of this catastrophe. I think I said to my roommate, "I want to live. I'm not even sure why. I just want to live."
Yeah, it's definitely very distinct because, like, the notion that, like, a hurricane, it's because they really enjoy the contradictions of this, like, wishful thinking because, like, she said, like, Daria says my sister would have nowhere to stay, and, like, obviously if Quinn's house is destroyed, so also is Daria's. That's immaterial to the problem.
Yeah.
Which, it's... But the thing, it resonates to such a thing about, like, growing up in like, a small town that you don't feel any resonance with, where the notion that it would get destroyed does not leave you placeless, or maybe you're placeless anyway. Except that, in a very teenage way, not really thinking about the impact of what that actually is, but
yeah. I love Jane's line where she says, being a post-apocalyptic town would be, it's gonna be cool. Other towns will be scared of us. And like this other conversation that I feel like I've had recently.
And at the same time, it's like, what towns won't be post-apocalyptic after all of this?
Right. We're really just gonna be scared of ourselves.
As always. Although I do think that Jane's desire for the destruction of the mall might be coming to fruition, despite the differences in Crisis.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, they were on the outs anyway. Thank God. We will have to do an entire meditation on the mall in the Daria.
Seriously.
Jane and Daria run into Britain, who made their way up to the roof to go suck face in their words. As one does. And they inform Brittany and Kevin that they quote, you might want to take your wholesome sport activities indoors. And isn't that what we have been trying to say to all sorts of spring breaking millennials and millennials who never wanted to see the cherry blossoms ever before, and our boomer parents who never wanted to go on lawn walks and now just can't seem to take their wholesome sport activities indoors.
I resent the characterization of millennials as the ones on spring break.
Those are. I'm sorry.
No one old enough to be millennial has a spring break.
Excuse you very much. I am cursed with a spring break tea as a graduate student.
But are you not working during that time?
I did work during that time. I don't actually recognize it as
you
anything.
Did not take the opportunity to go to Florida.
No, I did not. Anyway,
yes.
So what do you have written down next?
So the next is what happens after this encounter with Kevin and Brittany is that Kevin accidentally locks them all in some sort of a utility shed on the top of the roof, which leads them all to contemplate their mortality. Daria believes that the headline when she dies will be "Quarterback and Others Perish."
Yeah. And this also includes a great line from Brittany, where she says, "Will being dead wreck my afternoon?" And I don't know, man. I don't know.
It is a critical question of our times. So the next musical number in sequence here is that we have Quinn, who does not want to leave the mall, of course, because why wouldn't you be shopping right now? She's looking for a rain jacket.
She's got a stockpile.
Trying to make sure that she has, you got a stockpile. You got to make sure you have the appropriate fashion for sheltering in place, which would be a serious concern of the fashion club right now.
I definitely want to know what Quinn is wearing to stay at home.
It's a very good question.
Probably a smoky eye.
Well, the question is, would the fashion club so denigrate themselves as to wear stretch pants, leggings or sweatpants in any way. What would be a stay-at-home chic for them? It's unclear.
We'll never know, sadly. Quinn's trying to do some shopping, and then we get a cut to Helen, who is trying to leave. Well, not really trying to leave work. She's at work and she's trying to find a reason to stay. And you get this scene that I don't know about you, but I really related to it, where her secretary comes up to her and says, Helen, if there isn't any more to do, I thought that maybe I could go home and say goodbye to my loved ones. And if that isn't a summary of life under Corona capitalism, I don't know what is.
So real. And like this entire, it's fascinating, this entire sequence, because like it sets it up by juxtaposing Quinn's like consumerism and her addiction to consumerism to Helen's workaholism, and then brings in this whole like essentially worker justice angle. Which this is a character, this secretary. There's another episode of the show where she has to like ask for a bathroom break. Helen works in a law office, and there's this whole idea that like, that the work-life balance is radically wrong in this place, and in a way of kind of critiquing this notion of fulfillment in terms of career and what the sacrifices are and what the culture is around how people should behave in the workplace.
Well, and this is one of the things that Daria does so well that we really don't see anymore in mainstream comedy, mainstream fiction, which is to really critique consumerism in particular, and capitalism in general. We talked about a little bit about this, you and I, before, about how we're in this moment, the difference between the 90s and our current era when it comes to consumerism is that we can believe that consumerism is working for us because we can buy Daria t-shirts online, which are indeed the cries of our heart. But I think that you get this really beautiful critique of consumerism and just the meaninglessness of it all throughout Daria. And in this episode, it's so quick and yet so effective.
Yes, definitely something that once we start doing our theme episodes, I'm guessing in 2021,
I mean, who knows? The longer we stay at home, the longer we'll be live on the internet.
It's great because, similar to Helen and her secretary, working from home, there's still sometimes the sense that, like, there's still not a strong sense. I shared a meme today that said something to the effect of, you're not working from home during a crisis, you're trying to survive during a crisis while also having to work. And that's, like, again, like, very topical to the scene and very topical to why everyone keeps on talking about having so much time on their hands. And I'm like, I was already a remote worker, and this does not change a lot about the demands on me and my organization, even though they're, like, working on, like, they're saying a lot of things and, like, trying to be really supportive. But overall, like, the structure of a job is not designed to be supportive to human existence by primary, by the primary goal.
Yeah. And all of these complex ideas are expressed so beautifully in a heartbreaking duet between mother and daughter that ends with Sandy telling Quinn, this is one of my favorite lines in this entire episode, that they better go because, quote, running for your life is so geeky.
Yes, we need to leave while we can still walk. Oh gosh. But then we get to transition to a truly iconic Jake moment.
This for me might be the most relatable moment of this entire show. Jake is driving down the highway, singing a song that has the chorus, God damn it. And he's just having a total emotional breakdown in traffic because he needs to be home. And he's worried about his loved ones. He's thinking about his loved ones and the ways they might be dead.
Oh my god. Hashtag relatable.
And I mean, I feel like Jake's breakdown is every single one of us trying to go grocery shopping.
It's real. It's very real.
So the next scene we have Helen and Quinn are at home, and Helen's reading a book entitled Hurricanes and You.
Very important. This is the coping and self-care scene.
Yes. And they don't know where Daria is. They don't know where it is. And we get maybe the most iconic moment in this entire episode where Quinn decides to make hot cocoa because she once saw a really cute movie about a really cute group of teens, and when they were upset, they made hot cocoa. Yes, she definitely saw a television adaptation of the Boxcar Children.
I do love that Daria always seems to be constantly littered by like your classic cartoon like alternate reality versions of things that are real.
Yeah.
Like Boys to Guys.
Yes. And I have to say that the hot cocoa scene is me, but with beer.
Yes, I think that all of us are clinging desperately to our beverages, warm and otherwise. I haven't resorted to cocoa yet, but...
Well, maybe we need some alcoholic cocoa, you and I.
Oh, that could be good. Meanwhile, Daria is still stuck sheltering in place with Kevin and Brittany.
Truly the horror. In like a 3x3 foot shed on a roof.
Yes, and Brittany like keeps on hitting everyone else in the shed with various parts of her body.
Yes, poor Brittany. And they sing a moving song about how their families are probably worrying about them. They must be worried, mostly because by this time, by now they're catching on that two well-liked kids are gone, and I bet that somebody's missing you, says Kevin very helpfully. And I have to say that this was the least relatable part of this show for me because it's drenched in the teenage assumption that our parents are concerned about us. And now I'm old enough to know that it's me that's concerned about my parents. Because I have no idea if they're staying at home.
That's a very good point. And we truly, truly hope that they are. Jane says that she doesn't think that Trent is concerned about her because she thinks that he's probably just sleeping.
Which turns out to be the case.
Well, he does get woken up by the Morgendorfers calling him. And revealing a nice, giving us a very interesting, like, topless rolling out of bed scene for Trent Lake.
Shout out to phones that rang.
Good point. He can't put that on silence. Or I think that there was like a little toggle where you could put it on silence.
Isn't it a duck phone?
There definitely is a duck phone. I don't remember whether it's in Trent's
room, but I think it is.
Listeners, tell us if it's a duck phone.
All of our many listeners.
Very important questions. Yeah. So Helen calls Trent looking for Daria. Or is it? I guess it's Jake that makes the phone call. But Helen has to intervene because Jake is just yelling. And when she finds out that Trent has done absolutely nothing to prepare for this hurricane, orders him to come over. Naturally, which I have to say that if a hurricane was coming, might not actually be the best choice. But this show is full of people making rather reckless decisions.
It's true, and I think that it's canon that the Lane and Morgan O'Hara residences are within walking distance. So I think that given that many of the events of the show happen before any hurricaning has taken place, it might be the case that sheltering with the Morgendorfers would be a better bet. Who knows what kind of condition the Lane house is in, right?
I mean, I imagine that if Jane and Trent were staying at home to avoid coronavirus, they would be thoroughly entertained by their various artistic pursuits, but they would have no food. They would be eating frozen birthday cake.
They were so
very
lucky.
rapidly.
They were so lucky.
So Jake and Trent comes over, and then we get some more iconic moments from this episode. Where Jake starts freaking out, and Trent says, "No more cocoa for you, man."
Iconic.
All I have to say is I love that line.
Yes, and then this is where we get some further iconic behavior where Jake decides that he feels that sensitivity and moderation are not sufficiently masculine. And that what he really needs to do is get in the car and charge into the storm. And he enlists Trent in this as well.
Yeah. Because it's time to be manly.
It is.
It's time to be manly. They got to find Jane and Daria. This song includes one moment that I want to call out as being the absolute worst, which is just that Trent says something about how come being such a sensitive guy makes me feel like a bearded girl. Well, shout out to bearded girls. You're seen and appreciated. It's just a really fucking transphobic moment in this old ass cartoon. And it's unfortunate because the rest of the song, I mean, it's unfortunate full stop. Also, the rest of the song is such a classic send-up of masculinity.
It's, the levels of irony are so deep. And you have, ironically, Trent then celebrating that he's glad he has a beard on his chin. So I guess it's cool for him. But yes, I'm sure that sometime later on in Daria conversation time, we really have desires to talk about all of the various discussions of gender in Daria, this being an absolutely choice example.
But you summed up what this song offers us in this moment really well.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more about, because what happens in terms of the plot is that this song is what, they use to get themselves amped up to go handle the situation like a man, in a way that interestingly does not seem particularly like, I mean, it's still like the characters are still sympathetic in some way, but the outcome is so completely hopeless. Where, it's like they go charge out and then almost immediately they crash into a tree.
And they don't even get more than like 10 feet away from the front door.
Yeah. And so it it really is an exaggerated way of indicating that, like, essentially, like, this show existed long before the idea of toxic masculinity was in the mainstream, but that there is a certain type or a certain aspect of masculinity that serves us especially poorly in times of crisis. And
here's what I love about this about this moment and the notion of toxic masculinity. I have been a real detractor to the concept of toxic masculinity because I think that the problems of masculinity are actually can't be relegated to a special form of masculinity that is somehow toxic. I think that it's a lot more complex than that. And what you're actually seeing is Trent in particular claiming the sensitive guy masculinity that's still utterly useless. He can cry, he can care, he's got his head in a sensitive way, and he's just still in the car crashing into a tree.
Yeah, although, I mean, the song is a rejection of that too, that, like, essentially he feels in some way that, like, being sensitive and being moderate, and, like, Jake says, like, that he has to consult his feminine side, and he's upset, unhappy with that reality, and so, it presents a not particularly useful dichotomy. But, again, like, these are characters. I don't know if it really plays out in the rest of this. I don't know if we could, like, find some through lines in terms of the ways that these characters dialogue with masculinity, and, like, finding a space for masculinity that actually works for them and enables them to be useful to the people they care about, which is ironically, like, that's what this whole song is about, right? Like,
right.
They are really, really worried about their loved ones, and they don't feel like, behaving in soft ways is helpful, and so they've got to charge into the storm to go save the people they love. It's slightly tragic.
Well, and then we get to another scene that perhaps gives us another viewpoint on when masculinity can be useful, and that is that we're back with Daria and Jane and Kevin and Brittany in the creepy shed, the icky shed, I should say. The shed is icky, and they're stuck. And the winds are growing. I have to say that watching this now, I'm like, this is a stressful episode. The danger is very real, and that the realness of this level of danger is not properly engaged by any means. This is like, we're talking about some serious business here. But we get another song about being manly.
Right.
And Kevin is urged by the women in his life to apply his mighty helmet of a head to get them out of the shed. And is there anything that popular boy cannot do? No, there is not. Kevin bursts through, and the storm is over. And to Brittany, he makes a rainbow.
Yes. Well, the amount of credit that Kevin receives for things being a sore point among our protagonists, such that they are, but Interestingly, in this case, he was actually the only one who could solve the problem, and brute force was the only method available. Even though one could question whether exiting the shed, given that they did not know the conditions outside, it's unclear to me why that was the plan of attack.
It's not clear to me that a hurricane ever arrived in Lawndale. And I think that even within the episode, in the end, it's described as a big wet rainstorm.
It is,
right?
It is indeed, and it's disturbing to think of the implications of this hot take, Joy, because if there was in fact no hurricane, then we have to consider, back in the back, when Kevin was actually finally convinced that a hurricane was happening. It was a very quaint moment, because Daria tells him that it was in the newspaper, and he's like, oh, well, if it was in the newspaper, then it must be real.
Well, I mean, I would take the newspaper over Ms. Lee.
Certainly.
I gotta say.
But really, it was really just, oh, wow, like, imagine a time where the news media is a sufficient authority to contradict conspiracy theorists. But yes, if your theory is in fact valid, then we have to confront the possibility that the news forecasters were in fact wrong. There was no hurricane.
And maybe it was a conspiracy a la the X-Files.
There's no way to rule that out.
It's true. And I mean, there's a pretty overwhelming amount of evidence that this hurricane never really manifested, because we got a rainbow and we get our final number, the big wet rainstorm's over, and we find Jake and Trent are in their car. The airbags saved their life. They're fine. Their Lexus is smashed up, but whatever. We also get Mac and Jody, God bless them, are sitting on their on Jody's front porch. I think it's Jody's probably porch, and talking about how the big wet rainstorm's over and Lawndale's still the same. And okay, these characters carry so much structural analysis on their little cartoon shoulders. It's just astonishing. It's kind of unfortunate from a perspective of representation, because Jody gets a lot of depth, honestly, but Matt could use a little bit more. There just aren't a lot of characters of color in particular on this show, but boy, holy fuck, do they use them well. And they're asking the questions that I have right now, like what's gonna happen when this is all over and we try to go back to a status quo that is maybe not so quo. And I mean, a lot of our politicians are going to be talking bailout, but it's going to be bailout not for you and me, or for our loved ones. So Jody and Mac, as always, asking the big questions in just a few punchy lines.
Seriously, yeah, and it's really impressive that they managed to fit that concern in, even when like the scope and scale of this particular crisis was so extremely narrow and was just like really like a weather event that ended very quickly. We've got a runtime of 20 minutes in this episode, and yet they're still, in a bizarre and morbid way, which is on par for this, for this episode and for the show in general, since everybody
and for our lives,
but yeah, like they are like retrospectively thinking about what the destruction of the town would do for their lives and their sense of representation in their world, Even though there really wasn't like an opportunity within the storm to make significant, to make a significant struggle against the status quo. But they're still lamenting the fact that the structures that be have been untouched by the crisis event. I don't think there was enough time for them to be strengthened or dug in further, but that's clearly the concern one of the concerns that we're working with.
Yes. So Daria and Jane finally make their way home to their loved ones who were so worried about them. And we get a reprise of truly one of the greatest songs in musical theater, Morning in the Burbs. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, with the extremely poignant, as we watch it now, reprise lyric, "No need for a Surgeon General's warning." It's Morning in the Burbs.
Yes. I'm looking forward to the day in the Burbs and everywhere else where we don't need a Surgeon General's warning, and we're not wondering if we should be wearing masks outside.
Sounds good. Yeah. I'm into
it. And then so Daria sings.
Yes.
Like of all these characters, Daria does not actually sing. Jake has a whole operatic quality to him.
Very true. I don't understand how Jake's vocal skills fit into his character canonically, because I really feel like if it were textual, then we would have to see some sort of wild singing career failure.
Michelle, don't forget that he was writing Cadets Ho. What's it like? He had a whole military school singing career. Come on, Michelle.
Very good point. It's a very good point.
But yeah, the man is really good, and Daria is not. Daria speaks this great line that I just want to zero in on.
Yeah.
She says, "'Cause today was strange in extremes, and that's put lightly, and yet it started out so dull and pretty dull. So this feeling I don't feel slightly. It's the hope that tomorrow will come and another weird morning." And I don't know about you, Michelle, but that is the cry of my heart. I'm making that my personal motto. I'll cross-stitch it on a pillow.
Yes. I don't...
It's all we can hope for.
I don't know what could possibly be a better way to sum up feelings about these continued times, and perhaps even feelings about this live stream.
Hey. Yeah. Well, I think we should let the people go about their internet business, since we have shared our wisdom.
Indeed. It has been another strange morning in the burbs, and will be again. Apparently, since we're live streaming, I have to say, like, click, and subscribe. If you truly have standards this low, or an unsatisfied love of Daria and talking about Daria, which is the urge that drove us to create this content, and to have dreams of creating better curated content in the future, we're here, sort of. And we exist.
Right. And Michelle, I just have to sign off, tell you that until we come to bad ends, we'll be frickin' friends.
We will indeed. Have a good night.
Bye.